Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome to Brown Bag Bets, powered by BetSperts. We are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christensen, and joining me always in a very, very frigid place. Andy, how's it going? I see that Patrick is already feeling cold too. I mean, you guys okay? Everything warm?
Yeah, chili, bourbon, whatever you can do to stay warm. Just staying inside. We all have remote car starts up here, so I'll live. It's nice and warm in the office. I'll get through. The only thing I am pissed about is and I'm just going to start with this. I did not bet any college basketball today. I know one person who had a college basketball play. I played it. That game is already canceled. So I won't be sweating any basketball today. I'll just spend some time getting into Riviera, getting ready for golf. I'm going to kind of rely on you. And luckily, this is fortuitous that I booked a guest for today because I don't have shit for college basketball. You have a couple NBA plays. Real quick before we get into those, reminder, you can still get your free bet if you want to sign up for WinBet. We're still sending out sweatshirts. Look at that. Either one, just sign up for WinBet. Free, risk-free $500 bet, or even better, $1,000 if you live in the Wolverine state up in Michigan. And like I said, it's all on Alex today. So what's the look? What's the play in the NBA?
Just a shame on all the schedulers here. We got President's Day. Some people are home. I think you said there's like less than 10 college basketball games or something on today. The NBA decided not to have any afternoon games, but we're going to try our best. And as is, kind of my theme here, I'll start with Philadelphia, Utah. Taking the under here at 227. It looks like Joel Embiid is out. I was actually really excited to bet on the Sixers here. The line opened last night right around 5.5, 6, and has pulled all the way out to 8 this morning. There's starting to be a little bit of buyback. 7.5s are starting to pop again, but that really tells me that Joel Embiid is probably out of this game. He's questionable with a back. I know that he had a little bit of break. They don't have a game tomorrow. Maybe he does play. I like the under regardless. If he does play, I think it'll be a slow, kind of plodding pace. I expect the Sixers to do very well and control the tempo. If he doesn't play, it's going to be a lot of Dwight Howard. And although the pace picks up, I think that the offense will struggle a little bit. And Utah is going to have a lot of answers to the questions the Sixers team is going to ask without Joel Embiid. So grab the under 227 here. Would play it down to 226, not much lower. If Joel Embiid is in, I'll be sure to send this out on my BetSperts account. Again, you can find me, Alex Christensen, there. If Embiid's announced in, I'm going to have some Sixers here. I'm going to grab the spread. I'm going to grab a little bit of the money line here. I think that they're going to be very competitive. But for now, just the under, Andy.
Sounds good, and it's stupid that we don't have day games. Every other holiday we have day games in the NBA, and they can't get their shit in the get and figure that out for today. So I guess I'll just eat lunch and watch Netflix instead of sports.
I like that idea. That's not the worst thing. Yeah. You mentioned chilly. It's perfect chilly weather.
It is chilly weather.
One more under here. The Warriors, Cleveland. Grabbed under 226 here. It's actually moved a little bit against me. I see some 226s, maybe 227s. But again, I think the pace here for Golden State has started to slow down the last week. I know some of their offensive efficiency has started to come back down to planet Earth. Cleveland, it seems, will be without Andre Drummond, which might hurt them a little bit defensively, but I think that it's actually going to hurt them offensively. He actually does and creates a lot of nice space on the floor, rolling to the basket there. It seems like he might possibly be getting traded the next day or so. So if you're playing DFS, look to avoid him. Maybe look for somebody like Jarrett Allen. But again, expecting a slower pace here. My numbers have this closer to 222, so happy to grab under 226 here.
I dig it. And then, like I said, I ain't got shit. It's all Alex today. The Australian Open rolls on. My futures are looking good. Osaka's looking good. There's a lot of tough women left. I have some Nadal exposure. I have some Rublev to lose in this round to Medvedev. That would be a nice win. But for the daily stuff, I'm sure you got some women's tennis for me quick.
Absolutely. A couple plays here. I like underdogs, and I hope not to bum you out too much, knowing that Shea here is going to be playing Osaka. Sue Shea is one of the more interesting tennis players to watch. She plays a game and a style that really no one else does. She has a two-handed forehand, and it's not to demean her for maybe being, not as physically strong as a lot of the other players. She almost kind of whacks the ball more than tries to strike it. Like basically her goal is to almost just get it back to you as quickly as possible. She's going to make Osaka really work here. She's beaten her before. Again, I didn't take the money line. I really don't think she's going to win this match, but she really always gives Osaka a lot of trouble. There's really only one match that was on clay, which is a terrible surface for Shea, where Shea didn't cover the 6 games comfortably. So happy to grab +6 there. And then most of these matches have gone 3 sets, so happy to grab the plus 1.5 sets there at plus 190. Again, my numbers make this closer than what I'm seeing here in the market. I look at the head-to-head. There's a history of some really tight matches here, and as much as Osaka has been winning, I think that she hasn't really been at her peak level here. We'll see what happens. Again, I expect her to win this match, but see some value in the underdog on those spreads.
I like it, even though, yes, I hope she does not win. And yes, she looks like a small child when she hits the ball, just trying to get it back. Although she's been successful. She beat Irani. That was quite the match. So anything else in the ladies down in Melbourne?
Simona Halep is playing Serena Williams here, and going to take kind of a smaller wager. I've got just about half a unit here at plus 400. Serena Williams has looked great. I think that there's a great chance that she wins this match, but this is the first opponent she's going to play that's really going to make her work. So far, she's played a lot more power players, women that aren't necessarily going to try to get her moving left and right and to try to kind of tire her out. And we've seen Halep do that before in the past. I think that Halep has a chance to win this match, but I think that if she does, it's going to be in 3 sets, and I just see a lot of value here at 4-1. So I'm going to put a little bit of money there on Halep plus 4-1. Plus 400 to win 2-1. If you don't get this, maybe look for her a live money line when she's playing. Hopefully she goes down a break or something and you get a nicer price there. But I expect her to really move Serena around the court here. I think she has a great chance to win this match, but I think it is going to go 3 sets. So see value.
I like a little prop life. And what am I seeing here? What the hell is this that you're betting women who've been eliminated from this tournament? What do you got here?
So the WTA was nice enough to get all these women that they had quarantined and locked down for quite some time in what is now called the Phillip Island, or what is Melbourne 4. Basically, they did. Everyone who lost kind of in the first week, who was locked down in quarantine, they put into a field that actually started yesterday. We're going to take a look at here at Wang Jiang. And I made sure to put the second name there because there's about 6 to 8 women with the last name Wang. I believe she's the only Wang playing in this tournament, but be careful. You got to know your Wang. She is a small underdog here. I actually have her as a slight favorite in this match. I think there's just been some overreaction to her losses against some better opponents and her opponent Begu beating some lesser competition. So going to grab here on the money line is the underdog, and then I have one total as well. Bianca Vanessa Andreescu, the Mississaugan Mammoth, as you might know her, one of the best players on tour in 2019, is really starting to work herself into shape. I think she's still in a little bit of preseason mode, frankly. She's going against someone, Zarina Dias. There's a little bit of a lesser-known name on the tour. If you're a tennis fan, you'll recognize that name, but has a strong serve and is someone that is, going to make Andreescu work for this match here. I think there's a good chance this goes 3 sets, but so was really happy to grab the cheap over 20 here. So over 20 games there for Andreescu Diaz. Again, all these matches, even the Australian Open ones, will be tonight, I think starting around 7 or so Eastern or later. So you've got some time to grab those. But 4 tennis looks for me tonight, Andrew.
Perfect. All right, and we've talked and belabored this point. We are in the world without football right now. I wanted to talk to somebody who's kind of on the other side of the counter. Fun guest. My pleasure to bring in Mr. Dave Sharapan. You can catch him on, I kind of butchered his last name, Sharapan. You got to just kind of blur all those letters together because he is a East Coast guy, even though he's living out in the desert now. And you can catch him on GT's Cash Considerations podcast. I put Old Timer Storyteller. I didn't really know what to give him for a title. You can find him on Twitter. Sports BK Consig. Let's bring him into the stream here. How you doing, Dave?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, first of all, I'm great. Thanks for having me. Second of all, the material just in that 8 minutes was outstanding. I mean, just between Alex saying some of the names and knowing your Wangs and all these other things, and that graphic, I don't know. This game has been ramped up so good. I feel so left behind. Like that was such a great introduction. I'm going to need that screen grab, because then I'm going to blow that out everywhere. So thanks for having me.
I absolutely. I had to go find that picture of you in your damn hat.
Yeah.
That was for sure going to be the picture. So, yeah, and somebody in the chat already mentioning they loved your Larry King story. That was as far as your Twitter threads, that was one of the better ones. And it's fun to realize that we're not the only degenerates out there. And Larry King loved to bet the horses, R.I.P. Yeah. So that was one of the better ones. But, so like people who don't know you, you've worked many, many, many years on the other side of the counter in a few different places. You know, we talked a little before the show. You talked about Curacao. You know, you've worked out in the desert there. And that's kind of why we wanted to bring you in and talk a little today, because it is a weird part of the season. On the other show I do, the Deep Dive with Drew, we mentioned this the other day. We said, hey, you had a good NFL season, or you have been doing well in whatever you're doing, and now they pull the NFL rug from under you. You don't have NFL, you don't have college. Don't be that asshole who thinks you can just dive into basketball and win all your money, because we've seen it. And Drew even said it. He's like, I've done this. He's like, I've won at NFL and then just blown it all in the NBA in like 3 weeks. You know, so is that something you see a lot, or just is the market get a little wonky with a whole bunch of extra public money in it this time of year?
It's so funny because a couple things happen. One, a lot of the guys in the business go on vacation. Like immediately the week after the Super Bowl, they plan for different things. I plan for medical procedures. I had a colonoscopy for the first time last week. You know, the wife scheduled all this stuff out. Like right after the Super Bowl, you're like, all right, all the stuff you put off, that's what you take care of. As far as the customers, sometimes it's an exit interview. Literally, you don't see these people again until August or September. They're just like, I'm out. They're cashing their prop bets. And they're like, all right, Dave, we'll see you later. And they mean it. They don't come back. Then there's the other people that they're going to bet whatever they're going to bet. And now they become experts on the St. Louis Blues power play. They become experts on the Jazz. The Jazz have the best offensive efficiency. You start to hear all this crap at the counter, and you know that the people, they don't know nothing. They know zero. You start to hear about like college basketball is the best when they start to dive into the college basketball. I'll go deep dive, to drop a little hint there. People start talking about this stuff. They get on and they get Ken Palm, and now they're talking about like free throw percentage and all these other things, and they start betting like they know. And there's a great Jim Mora quote that, you think you know, but you don't know, and you never will. And I use it all the time in this time, especially this time of year. If you don't know, maybe back off a little bit. I mean, like there's even tennis experts, Andy. There's tennis experts right now, boys. They're talking about stuff. Did you see that match last night? I'm up watching it because I'm sick and I'm crazy, just like the rest of us. But there's people that are watching the replay in the book thinking it's live. That's the best. Happens every year. Every year.
That is solid. Yeah, and it's kind of like gambling Twitter. You see that where the guy, there's people that generally, they specialize in a certain sport or a couple sports, but then you see the one asshole that just every time the next season, baseball's right around the corner. That's my best sport. Oh, and then once you get to September, oh man, NFL's here. This is my best sport. Like they just rotate what their best sport is, time in and time on. Yeah, we haven't even gotten to baseball yet, but right now, everything you said, I'm glad I've gotten the brains. I don't know if I have the brains. I've gotten my brains beaten in enough to know, like, hey, Andy, don't bet the NBA. You don't know what you're doing. You don't have the time. You don't have the bandwidth. Like, you're just going to sit there. Breaking even would be lovely.
The NBA is the hardest market to beat, period. Like, it has been for a long, long time. Like, basketball in general, I think, is the hardest sport because you see what happens at the end of games between the NBA and college basketball. Like, the end of games, you can lose years off of your life trying to, you have it played out perfectly. And it's just like sitting at the poker table and you played it perfectly. And then the river comes and you're like, that's it, I'm out. Like, you watch what happens. And that happens in basketball more often than not. The NBA right now is such a hard thing with, COVID and everything else, who's playing, who's not. Load management started, I don't know, a couple years ago. These guys play, there's 82 games in a season. Nobody plays 82 games. And the market moves on information that maybe a guy's playing, maybe he's not. Alex has a great breakdown with the Sixers and the Jazz. One guy is going to determine whether you play that side or not. And you don't know until almost like pregame warmups whether Embiid's going to play or not. So you're trying to pick these games and you come into the book with your regular day and you're going to look up at the board and you're going to tell me there's 4 games of the 8 in red today. Like that means that we don't know, the lines are limited, the limits are limited because nobody knows. It's really hard.
Now, there's a lot of good thoughts about kind of customer behavior and things like that. Kind of again on the other side of the counter as a bookmaker, what changes? I would imagine you guys have a lot more free time, obviously, without the NFL. Do you guys spend more time maybe on main NBA markets? Is this an opportunity for you guys to expand maybe more derivatives and try to hone in on those? What are you guys doing with sort of that extra time over the next couple months?
Well, like for me, I was always sitting there working on baseball stuff because I was looking forward to, because everybody kind of has their lane, when you do this, and, everybody watches the football, but only certain guys really watch the NBA. And usually it's by default. Like you don't watch the NBA because you like it. You watch the NBA because no one else wants to. Like that's how that works. The college basketball guys are in their own world. That is a full-time job, and it's one of the hardest things of any market that I've ever booked. The guys that really do it and know it are just on a different level.
Well, the half times. I mean, there's Saturdays where it's like, 16 games are going to be at halftime at the same time, and that's sides and totals and all. That has to just be a nightmare.
I can't believe that I did it, 23 years ago. I was, offshore. I was doing it myself. I had me and one other guy. And there's a reason why I got burned out in 18 months, like 18, 20 months, whatever I lasted down there. It was just too much. And now, you got a Saturday. I mean, the Saturdays in January and February in the book with all the games and the times all starting at the same time, the half times, those are the grind days. Like Saturdays are way harder than any NFL Sundays. NFL's one day. College football Saturdays are busy, but college basketball Saturdays are the hardest days of the year. So books are changing the game too. The derivative markets, the individual player prop markets and stuff like that. Like for bettors, it's great. The menus are expanding. For guys like me who are just, you do it because you have to do it, not because you really want to do it. It's not fun. Like that is the labor that is really hard. And, if you want to get good at it, you really got to do it because there's guys on the other side of the counter that are doing it. They're putting in the work every day. So it's a challenge. And I think with the expansion of, wagering and the companies that are doing it are fantasy based. I mean, they've been doing this. You have to adapt or you have to maybe look to get a media job, which is maybe what I'm doing.
And it does ring true, the fact that, I'm making a big deal of like, football's gone and we're transitioning to basketball. Well, in a normal year, the NBA would be in like their, fifth damn month, it feels like. I mean, really, but it would be like halfway through the season at this point. It kind of is really, even though it's a shortened season. And college basketball has been weird with all the postponements and some of the conferences starting at different times. But we are like 3/4 of the way through the season. It's not just like, the books are scrambling to, get their basketball stuff sharpened up because everybody's betting basketball. No, it's a really hard time of year because they've figured out the numbers. The numbers are kind of what the numbers are. I know a lot of pros and guys who take college basketball seriously who don't do much in February and very little into March because it's harder. It's just like everything else we've ever talked about. Like once you get to a certain point in the season, everybody knows who everybody is. Like it all turns into the NBA. You're looking for a weird situational angle. You're looking for some players that are out. Like Jesus Christ, somebody popped the hell off my screen yesterday when I ran number. It was Bradley versus Missouri State. I made the number way off. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to bet the farm on this. And then quickly you look and like, they have 4 good players suspended. Never mind. Like you just the quick stuff like that you're going to find it and like, not an edge. Never mind.
2020, it was just a difficult year for like the bubble was different, never experienced before. I thought it was easier to make numbers because there was no home court, no crowds. I thought that was easier. This has been hard. Like college basketball up to this point for the books has been tough. I think for a lot of bettors, it's been tough, but you're absolutely right. Now the numbers are sharp. Like the numbers are tight. And it is really hard to win. And then as you get to March, you see what happens in the NCAA. It is impossible. Like, it is so tough to bet. And this is when Vegas, like, we'd be getting ready for the madness. That's the other thing that I think is probably happening, but maybe on a little bit lesser scale because, people aren't traveling like they used to. But the 4 days of March Madness, at the first 4 days, are awesome. And you're ramping up for like conference tourney week, the week before, the 10 days before. It feels like that's a whole month before now, but somebody's playing a tournament somewhere. So you get ready for that. And then when the madness comes, your A game is on. Like, and that's the last, like, April 2nd is usually the day that now you start to figure out the summer plans, because you're into just NBA is playoffs, NHL is playoffs. Those things kind of, not book themselves, but it's easier. And then you're into the grind of baseball, and like 3 guys in the whole risk room are baseball guys. Everyone else is like, oh, I got to do this again. There's no movement. There's, it's all money lines and run lines. It's easy. If you like it, if it's fun, but yeah, it's a different time of year. It's very, very different.
Yeah, Alex, you can speak to that. And it's funny, like you make it sound easy, but it kind of is once you get to NBA playoffs. And like, that better than anybody there, Noops. It's we keep bringing up the Heat Celtics, conference tournament. What was it? Conference finals? Was that?
Yeah, conference finals.
Eastern Conference Finals. Like, yeah, that was something that really got brought up in a lot of chats. I was talking like, they just keep making this number the same, even though the Heats are winning. Like, they can't change it massively. It's the same 2 teams playing on the same court with the same players. Like, they're just because the Heat took 1 game off them, they're not going to move it and make the Heat a favorite tomorrow. It's just not how that works. It does just kind of, conference tournaments, excuse me, like NHL and NBA playoffs, the prices for each game are pretty much similar.
Yeah, we've seen that in the regular season this year with the 2-game series. I mean, one of the only things I've looked as I continue to look at those head-to-heads, whatever the closing line is for the first game is going to be the opener for game 2, unless there's an injury or maybe they're traveling or something. But you see that there, and it's just like you said, Andy, the playoffs every year, the line might move a point or two. I think by the time we got to the end of the Miami series, I mean, Miami wasn't favored, but it wasn't as – I think they had gotten a couple points by the time we got down to the end.
But see, I was in the room arguing that it should be adjusted. Like, I was one of the guys sitting there going, guys, are you watching the games? Like, they're winning the series. They're winning the games, and you get pushback. So that's a unique thing that, like, I would make adjustments just to generate action. Like, sometimes, yeah, you think it's going to regress back to what the original number was, but sometimes the original number sucks. Like, sometimes the odds makers don't get it right all the time either. And that's the funny thing. Like, everybody remembers, that game fell 3 and the line was 3. Yeah, but you forget the other game that was we made 4.5 and the dog won by 20. Like, there's more games that are misses than fall on the number. So I'm with you, Alex. Like, I think there should be adjustments. This unique thing with the NBA and these back-to-backs, in college basketball, when they play the same team twice in the same venue, I would put a little more stock into what happened. I think it's lazy and it's kind of easy to just throw up what the closing number was. And, it works. I mean, a lot of books are doing that. And who am I to say that, mess up the process? But, like, move the number 2 points. If Loyola beat Drake by 19, why is the line?
What happened in game 2 there?
Right? Yeah. Drake wins.
I can't speak to it in college as much, but I know the NBA playoffs specifically, that's a different sport. I mean, you're trying to use regular season numbers and a regular season attitude where it's every other night. They don't have time to really prep for these teams, where once you get to the playoffs, they've had a 3-4 day break before the end of the season. The teams start to get healthier. Your rotations shorten. Teams, there's no junk time, basically. Teams are attacking every single second. And these good coaches, get to come through and have a day, sometimes 2 days off in between games to kind of pick this part and put little things in. So that's kind of where I find value. I think that if you're someone that really pays attention and watches a lot of the games and is lucky enough to have an understanding of how those matchups work, I was looking at those Miami games. Boston was a better team all year, but we're now in a 7-game series. I've got Spoelstra, who's arguably the best coach on planet Earth. I've got Butler, who is just not going to be afraid, and he is just going to.
He got hot.
Marcus Smart scares people. Marcus Smart is scared of Jimmy Butler. Bam Adebayo had a chance to be the best player in that series, especially given what Boston had in terms of a center position. There was just all these little things that were piling up. But just like you said, Dave, you run the numbers. It's like Boston should be favored. And I get that argument, but I think it's maybe sticking to your process a little bit and not acknowledging that the game has changed. The rules are a little bit different, and maybe we need to approach the playoffs differently than we do the regular season.
Yeah, well, and like you said, if you'd have hung like a boss, it opened 4. It was 4 for the first couple games, and then Miami started taking some money, and it was adjusted. But like game 2, game 3, you hang Boston -1.5. You'd have taken some. It depends on your risk room too and what you're doing. And if you want a bunch of Boston money, you can take a stand and say we'd be happy to take some Boston money. We're going to hang it too. Everybody's going to bet the Celtics, and we're fine with that because it's not going to land there. It's either they might cover it, but if they cover it, they would have covered a 4 anyway. And we're going to drive this Boston money and we might take a bath, or we might just kill it with the Heat again.
That's the thing. Like from the book's perspective, you have to. Every book is different, and there's a lot of books that just want to hang a market number and then let it fall where they may. But the notion that books are just trying to get balance action and take the juice at -110 or whatever it is, I didn't grow up that way. I didn't learn it that way. I didn't get my PhD in the business that way. It was like, look, Miami's better. Let's get some Boston money now because there's, that Miami money is going to come later, or let's need Miami tonight. So if the market's 3, we're hanging 1.5 or 2, and we're taking at least a hit or 2 on Boston on the way up to get to the number. Like the thing that the screen has done and the proliferation of books is you get the, what's the word? Homogenization of the number. And, that's a big word, Andy. I know.
That was huge.
I was impressed.
Like Alex, he ramped up your game. Like, listen, you got a smart guy sitting over here. You got you up there and behind the bar doing whatever you're doing with that screen. But it's happening. You see this number is the same. Like I remember when every bookmaker almost had a different number, and there were guys taking and laying and all like the same game. And we know what's going on now between everyone using bots and things like that. But, you can put a different number up once in a while and just see what happens. Hey, it's okay.
I'm surprised, especially in the regular season with some of the smaller stuff. You don't see that. Take a position every once in a while, see what happens. I would feel like you almost want to do it from a market research perspective every once in a while. If you're setting lines, say, for example, like on the Pistons or the Cavs every night, you're just not getting money. All right, tomorrow, I don't care what happens. We're setting the number. I want some goddamn Cavaliers money. Like, what do we have to do?
I used to do it during lunch. I would be sitting. You want to talk about what are risk guys doing? Like, we're sitting there today, it's a slow day. And when it rains here, people don't come out. So, there's books where, if you don't have mobile, you're dead today, So you're sitting there and you're like, all right, what's the line on the Hawks and Knicks? All right, we got 2. Let's just make it 3. Let's see what happens. See who's paying attention. And I used to call it sending out the bat signal. We would put it up, see what happens, and take a bet or 2, and then move it back. Or the best was when you moved it and no one touched it. Like, I guess what side? I guess I know what's coming, and that they're laying 2 everywhere else because you're already at 3, and they were waiting to lay it somewhere, and then you start to see the market move to your number. And I used to laugh all the time. I'm like, man, I hope none of my boys are mad at me that we're going to lay 2. I didn't mean to move it at 2:00 because the play's coming at 3. And I was just messing around just to test the waters, and nobody plays it. And you're like, yep, I better go play the Hawks myself at -2.
I love that. That's
I was just gonna go that way. I'm like, God, you kind of got a little bit of a market indication that you have a play on your hands. You might want to just go play it yourself.
Yeah,
that's funny. So, this was good. Good stuff. Appreciate you coming on, Dave. Look how long we get going with you, and all of a sudden we're on a half-hour show here. But no,
Sorry.
we love you. No, it's fine. I kind of expected it. I know how he goes. I had one time on the phone with you, all of a sudden I'm like, shit, I had a meeting with my wife here. So, but I always appreciate you coming on. I'm going to definitely try to get you on some more of this off season. Maybe a long. I wish I had a longer podcast. I could do something like the deep dive.
If only.
Yeah, maybe we might have to do a.
This podcast is generally
conversation
longer.
with Mr. Dave.
There's nothing really to talk about because there's no football.
Yeah, I know. We are going into the off-season mode here. So no, but he put it right down there in his little picture. You can find him on Twitter if you don't follow him already, at SportsBKConsig, which is some sort of abbreviation for Sportsbook Consigliere, which is the part played by Robert Duvall in the Goodfellas.
You need a good consigliere.
You do. And then
the guy
just quick recap.
What is he talking about? Oh my God.
Quick recap. Philly, a bunch of unders. Alex loves his unders. Philly, Utah under. Golden State, Cleveland under. I got to go to the other screen. College basketball. Take the damn night off. Calm down. There's no games. Tennis in the Aussie. Halep's prop to win 2-1. Shea, the games and the set handicap. Taking her as a dog against Osaka. And then on Phillip Island, Wang, know your Wang Chang. One more, help me with
Wang Jiang.
Wang Jiang.
There we go.
And Bibby and Diaz over 20. I actually played that one. I like your totals. So for all of us here, again, thanking Dave for coming on, and we will catch you tomorrow.